Welcome to FDA Imports, cross-border compliance with attorney Benjamin L. England.
Hey everyone, welcome back to an all-new episode of FDA Imports, cross-border compliance with attorney Benjamin L. England. I am your host, Mike Leon. Ben is the founder of FDAImports.com, and he's a former FDA regulatory counsel who's been helping companies worldwide navigate the complex intersection of FDA oversight and international trade. And in today's episode, we're going to be talking about the FDA's recent enforcement discretion around color additives, what it means for labeling, and why importers are now facing conflicting regulatory signals. I'm sure it's making them scratch their heads, Ben, as always. But Benjamin, it's good to see you. So let me ask you here at the onset for the audience, how have the FDA regulations historically treated these color additives that are in food and other colors that are derived entirely from natural sources?
Yeah. Hey, Mike. Good to see you. Let me start here. Colors are anything that you would add to a product that FDA regulates that is capable of imparting a color, right? Of like changing the color or adding a color or affecting the color of a food or a cosmetic or a drug or a medical device or anything else. So if you add it to the product, then it's going and it has the capability of imparting color. Then it's going to be regulated as a color additive. Some things do more than add color. Carotene is a good example. Carotene comes from carrots, and it's going to have an orange color, but you might add it for nutritional value. Beta carotene, for instance. Beet juice is a color additive if it's being added in order to add a pink or a reddish color hue to whatever it is that you're making. However, it's also a sweetener. Beet sugar, beet juice has sugar in it. So there's different reasons why somebody might add it, and then that then gets a little trickier into how the regulations handle it. But generally, there are two types of colors. There are those that are considered to be natural colors. They're derived directly from some natural source like a seed or a leaf or a flower, some plant material. Also could be animal material, it can be insect material. It can come from a number of different sources, and it's naturally derived, not by chemical synthesis. It's derived by like crushing or squeezing or extracting or something like that. So that's a natural color. Synthetic colors are ordinarily regulated under a certification program. And you probably will recognize things like red number 40. Right? That's a thing of the press these days. Red number 40 is a certifiable color. It's a color that requires certification. And when you look at the label, it'll say FD&C Red 40, and that means food, drug, and cosmetic Red 40, and it has to be approved for that specific use. Right? Colors that are synthetic, that are certified. Either if they're not natural, then they must be approved for FDA use. So this is yellow number 5. It's blue number 1. It's red number 40. These are all things that people see in the ingredient statement. You also have to declare colors because there can be allergic reactions associated with the added colors. So there's a couple of regulatory pieces to it. Certified colors become certified when the manufacturer of the color submits their data, their manufacturing data and their testing data to the FDA, who reviews that and performs the testing and certifies batch by batch. And then that color has a certificate that then can be used by food manufacturers. Ordinarily, whenever you add a color, even if it's a natural color, to a food, you have artificially colored the food. Right? If the food isn't pink, but you add a beet juice, which is could be a natural color, and you make it pink, then you have artificially colored the food. Pink lemonade is a good example, right? If you make lemonade, it won't be pink unless you add something, and the thing you add is a color. If it's a certifiable color, then it has to be from a certified batch, like red number 40. But nobody does that. They put beet juice in there, and beet juice is a sweetener. But it also imparts color, and so you have artificially colored the lemonade in order to convert it from yellowish to pinkish. So that's how FDA regulates it. Every color additive has to either be recognized by FDA in a regulation as a natural color, or it has to be recognized in the certified color additive section, and it has to be from a certified batch. But this artificially colored declaration occurs in a couple of places in the label. You have to say that it's been artificially colored, even if it's a natural color. And that's where this guidance has gotten has mixed things up for the industry.
Can I ask you to expand a little bit more on the guidance? Because I know they recently issued this indicating that it will exercise the enforcement discretion, right? Allowing certain foods to bear that no artificial colors claim, like even though you just gave the example, right? That some of the artificial colors kind of a matter of law. So like what exactly did the FDA change here?
Oh, good. So let me talk about the what appears to be the philosophy, or what they say the reason for doing it is. There is a desire now in the government to reduce people's intake of colors, not color additives, chemical color additives, and also preservatives and other types of additives that are not colorants. These are all the other things people talk about in food additives, as food additives. Color additives are just a type of food additive that happen to make the color change in the food. Because the regulations require any food that has been colored to be called artificially colored, it causes people to shy away from foods that have been artificially colored, but not by an artificial color, right? A red number 40 is an artificial color. I keep using red number 40 because it's sort of like one of the hot buttons. It happens to be highly allergenic. It also is derived from the juice, basically, or the blood or the secretion of certain insects. And so it sort of also has its own sort of like gross factor to it. But if you color with red 40, your food is artificially colored. If you color with beet juice, your food is artificially colored. And you have to call it artificially colored on the label. And FDA doesn't want people not eating food with beet juice in it. They are discouraging eating food with red 40. And so to do that, they're changing how they tell the industry, they're changing how they're going to enforce the claim on the food, not telling you what you have to put in it. Red 40 is still an approved color for foods. But if you have red 40 in it, you must call it artificially colored. If you have beet juice instead of red 40, then you could call it not artificially colored, right? Or what's the claim? The claim is no artificial coloring. All right, no artificial colors. There's 3 claims that FDA allows: made without artificial food colors or colorings, no artificial color or colors or coloring, and no added artificial colors or coloring. Those are the different kinds of things that you can add. If you have a red 40, even though you also have beet juice, you can't make that claim because you do have an artificial color, which is red 40. So what they're doing is they're honing in on foods that don't have any artificial colors, even though they do have colors.
Right.
So beet juice, I'm going to use it as an example. It's classic. So the beet juice is in my food, but I don't have any other. I don't have red number 40. I don't have Pensio. I don't have any other certifiable color that's in it. I can say made with no artificial color, but I can't say not artificially colored, because it is artificially colored. The food is artificially colored with beet juice. So that's what's happened. And the goal here, I think, is to drive people towards foods that are not using artificial colors, even if they are artificially colored.
So Ben, let me ask you then, from a compliance standpoint, like these importers, how should they understand this difference between this regulatory change and a decision not to enforce an existing regulation?
Well, first of all, it's not really a safe harbor. When the government comes out with guidance, they're not issuing a regulation. It's not law. Right? This is a letter to manufacturers. Is how it's been cast. And FDA just published last week. We are right now it's February the 10th. I think this was like February the 5th, so about 5 days ago. This came out, so it's pretty new. So the interpretations are not that complicated. The difficulty is what if I follow the guidance And for some reason, FDA doesn't like the color I've used, even though it's arguably a natural color. Maybe it's not an approved natural color. Maybe it's something that I'm putting it in for some other reason, and now I'm calling it a natural color because I'm going to get away from the artificial claim. FDA might look at that and they would say the letter to manufacturers is not law. It's not a regulation. It's guidance. So the government doesn't have to follow it. It's non-binding on anybody, right? It's just FDA saying, this is our thoughts about it. We're trying to accomplish a particular policy. And to do that, we're going to issue this guidance. It didn't change the regulations and it didn't change the law. The law still says if I have beet juice in my food for the purposes of coloring it red, I must call it artificially colored pink lemonade, right? That's in my statement of identity, right? On the front of the label, it'll say pink lemonade, artificially colored. Now I don't have to say that under the guidance, but it's not law. So that's the challenge that anybody has. It's importers, it's domestic manufacturers, it's distributors, people, e-tailers, retailers, right? People selling on TikTok. You say something on your TikTok channel that says no artificial colors. And you sell it on your TikTok. Your TikTok channel is your labeling, and FDA regulates it. People don't realize that. FDA regulates. We should do a whole podcast. Instagram, TikTok, right? We'll do that next. That's labeling. If they can click on that store and go to your store and they can buy your food, you have food labeling, and it's everything you said on that channel.
Yeah.
Challenging.
I just learned that today, so it's interesting. By the way, the makers of beet juice are going to love this episode. By the way, the amount of times we're mentioning it. But let me ask you, Ben, because we're talking about food, but there's other industries that use this stuff, right? So, like, does the enforcement discretion kind of only apply to food? The same principles kind of extend to the cosmetic industry, other oral drugs, like?
Good question. Not yet. Now the cosmetic industry has historically been regulated by the same center that regulates foods, the same FDA center. There's a cosmetic division. Now, that's been reorganized and sort of like reshuffled. They did that, but that happened before Trump came in. That was an end of Biden administration thing. Quite frankly, it was a mistake. But a lot of reorgs are mistakes. This guidance is only to food manufacturers. Now, I say manufacturers, but it would apply to importers, anybody who's in the supply chain, and that they're responsible for compliance with the product when it comes into the market. So the manufacturer might be in Asia, it might be in Europe, it might be in South and Central America, and the letter's written to them, but it's going to apply to the importer of that food. Cosmetics, no, it's only first of all, it's guidance only, so it's not a reg, not a law, so it has no force and effect of law. So nothing has really changed even with foods. And cosmetics are not mentioned. We mentioned pharmaceuticals. Pharmaceuticals that require a new drug approval are going to be governed by the new drug approval, right? And that's outside the regulations. That is an agreement between the manufacturer, the sponsor of the drug, and the Food and Drug Administration as to what's going to be in it. When you take a pharmaceutical pill, a capsule, a tablet, and it has red or pink or purple or orange, that's not natural. Right? It might be a natural color, but it's not, the pill is not naturally that color. So it's been colored. And I mentioned FD&C red 40. There is a D&C red, some other number. That's drug and cosmetic approved. And so those colors are certifiable, but they're not approved for food use. And I don't see the Center for Drugs making any changes with respect to their over-the-counter drugs. Oh, I was making the comment that drugs that require FDA approval are going to be governed by the approval. That's the agreement between the manufacturer and the FDA. Yes, that's all regulatory and it's legal. There's a legal structure for it. Over-the-counter drugs is sort of the more interesting question, because over-the-counter drugs the formulas, including the inactive ingredients, are not approved by FDA drug by drug. They're approved generically. Right, so certain colors are approved for drug use, which is why you see a D&C red number or D&C blue or D&C yellow on the label, as opposed to an FD&C, which is food, drug, and cosmetic. So they're approved generically. They can be used in any FDA-regulated over-the-counter drug. Natural colors can also be used. I don't see the Center for Drugs stepping into this because I think it's primarily the MAHA movement here even though there is a drug component to the MAHA movement, it's primarily around the food space. So I don't see it going to cosmetics or over-the-counter drugs.
Ben, let me ask you, because my understanding is, and I want you to clarify if this is correct, that many statement of identity regulations, and I know you said this isn't a regulation type thing, but many statement of identity regulations still require that declaration of, I'm using air quotes, artificially colored. So if the FDA is no longer enforcing that requirement for these claims, how should companies then reconcile those obligations?
They're going to decide whether or not they want to take advantage of the guidance. I mentioned it's not technically a safe harbor because it's not law or regulation. Here in the import side, here's where it's a bit of here's where I see the risk. I have a manufacturer who manufactures a food and they use coloring. There is an import alert that's related to colors, illegal unapproved colors in food. It's import alert 45-02. There's also one for cosmetics. I think it's 53-06. I can't remember, but there's one for cosmetics too. Here's what I can see happening. Someone who has been manufacturing a food that uses a synthetic color changes their claim, no artificial colors added for their food, change their formulation, and yet they end up having an artificial color in the food. And FDA will find that eventually because they test food for colors at the border with frequency. This import alert has probably, I bet if it has one, it's got 1,000 companies on it all over the world that have colors in their food that are not declared or that are certifiable colors that don't have a certificate. And so I see FDA sampling and testing food at the border bearing these claims to see if they are properly within the guidance. And if they're not, then they are illegal. I mean, then they contain an illegal color. Now that's true already. It's just FDA. I think they're going to start focusing in on this claim at the border. I think that otherwise, I think that the companies are just going to decide whether or not they want to trust the FDA. It's not a safe harbor. Ordinarily, companies, think about it. If the FDA wanted to bring some legal action, they'd have to get the Department of Justice to support it. And they'd have to convince the Department of Justice that these people were bad people and we should prosecute them. And DOJ is going to say, wait a minute, you put a guidance document out that says it's okay to do this. Now you've got this little nuance and you don't like this one. And, we're not getting in the middle of that. So they're going to have a hard time enforcing it. So it's going to have the effect of a safe harbor, even though it's not a legal safe harbor.
Yeah. It's why you're out here explaining these things, Ben. There's so much nuance to it. So I appreciate the time and breaking this all down for the audience.
Great. Good to see you, Mike. I'm glad I can help.
That's it for today's episode of FDA Imports Cross-Border Compliance. If your company is importing food, cosmetics, or drug products, like Ben said, a little bit less, but that use color additives, and you're trying to navigate the shifting FDA enforcement expectations, I know somebody that can help you with this. I just talked to him. Visit FDAImports.com. You're going to connect with Ben and his team. If you found the episode helpful, do me one more favor. Hit like, subscribe, leave a review, comment, share the episode with someone who needs to hear it. I am Mike Leon. We will see everybody next time.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.